Alright, so we're just here to show off our settings, how we get our VR working or on iRacing. Let's close out of what we don't need here. Okay. So first things first is we'll open up our control panel. And that is hard to see, so let's make that a little easier. That didn't help. Let's see if we bump up our resolution over here for the moment so you guys can see. There we go. So in our Nvidia control panel, we didn't change anything in our 3D settings globally, but if you come over to program settings, select your program as iRacing, the DX11 exe file. When you do that, you make sure that you're set up. If you're not set up there, you click add. You browse for your program. If you can't find it, you would go to your PC, C drive, 86. Of course, ours is run through Steam, so you would go through Steam, Steam apps, common, iRacing, and then you would hit your DX11 right there. And when you hit open, that sucks it into here. So that way you can set these 3D settings per that program. And then, of course, you can see here our settings. The bold ones are ones that we've changed. So we have our image scaling off. Ambient occlusion, there's no change to that. Leave it to the application. Anisotrophic filtering, we change that up to 16 times. Then off there on the FXAA, off on the game correction, or gamma correction, sorry. Then on the mode, you want to leave that controlled by the application. That's global setting there. Then your transparency, 4 times super sample. Let's scroll down here. All these are the global default settings, all the way down to power management. So we'll scroll it down here to power management. Change that to prefer maximum performance. Texture filtering off. Clamp high quality off. And then threaded optimization, turn that on. The buffering, you leave global settings, which is your default. Vertical sync, turn that off. Virtual reality pre-rendered frames, that's set to 3. That's just what I've been. These are all settings that I've been picking up off of different videos and things like that to get everything working. So that is our 3D settings through the Nvidia control panel. If you don't have Nvidia, I'm not too sure how to help you make things work, as this is the initial setup for what I have to do for my settings. You may not need to make all these changes with, like, if you have AMD, there may be a different way to go about making the changes. I'm not positive. That's something that would have to be researched and found out for those who don't have the Nvidia capture card. Now, with us having the RTX 4060, this is the settings that we run to be able to keep things smooth and clean. So we'll change from that, and now we'll bring up our. That's our settings. We'll bring in our game. Pop that up. Now, before we do that, I'm gonna bring over the VR view for you all to see, because what you'll want to get downloaded is called OpenXR toolkit. You run that in the background, and what that'll allow you to do, which let me open that. XR Toolkit Companion app is what it's called. So when you open that up, it's, I mean, basic. You open this program up. Whichever you want to do, you can either use Control or Alt. But you enable the XR Toolkit selectively for that iRacing program. And then you can have Control or Alt, but this is where you'll hit like Control down. And what you'll see that does is when I hit Control down on my keyboard, when we're in the game or in our VR view, and that screen doesn't have to stay up. Once you've opened this once, it's locked in, it's synced, so you can actually close this out. It doesn't matter. But what that gives you the ability to do is pull up this menu here in the game. Let me scale this up so you guys can see it better. Make that. Let's see. Is there another way to make this bigger? Menu distance. There we go. So bam, make that real big so you guys can see that real quick. Okay, so in our performance, you want to make sure that you have all these settings the same. And this is where, you know, everybody's system may be a little different. You can kind of tinker around with these different inner resolutions and outer resolutions. You'll notice what they do is that cuts off the outside image and makes it a little distorted and blurry, just like it does if you're running the PSVR on the PlayStation, where you've got the clear viewpoint right in the middle of your screen, basically. With this, I just set these to a halftime, so you don't even notice it really once you're zoomed out. But what that does is help bring all your clarity to the center of the screen. And the way you'll see that is, say like I went to that call, so it hides it. You can see how we can shrink our view down to what we want to see. And that'll change the view overall. For, you can see how it makes that wide angle there. When you're messing with these settings, I think I had that at 90. Actually, I think it was at 80. Yeah. But what you'll start to notice is your clarity will get better and better in the middle the more you have these blurred on the outsides. So if we were to leave that at 16 on the outside, you can see on the edges of the image, which doesn't really show up that well on the stream, but you can see the edges get a little blurrier right there at those points. So we'll leave that at a quarter, and then all these other numbers, just kind of do it as I do there. And then as you get more and more comfortable with these settings, fine tune these settings, see what will work better for your system. We're not doing any upscaling or sharpening now. I was at first, but you can tell there at the top of the screen, I'm holding at 80 FPS, not using any of the upscaling and stuff. So that's what I leave it at. You post processing, you can get it to kind of change the look of the image, and you can use this light, dark, like sunglasses look, but whatever works best for you. I leave the post processing off just to save some power for my to run all better FPS. I've seen people run this at like 20% over prediction reduction. Every time I do, it gives me like this weird screen glitch. So I just leave it at a 0%. I don't mess with it. Then for our system, you can see there, these are what we've got our settings set up at. Um, this 30 or 3000 by 3058 tends to work pretty good for me. Then you can see these percentages here that I have cut off. Like if I were to bump that up, it just shows further out the side. But if you do this at 80, what I'm starting to notice is when we pull away our VR, look at it, and I move these numbers so it makes it wider or skinnier, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I've been playing around with this to try to make it a little bit more centered, as been noticing like lately, like if you leave it at 100%, you see so much out that left side, but not as much out the right. So kind of cutting down some of that and widening out. I don't know what's better. I'm kind of playing around with that to see what we want to leave that at. Maybe 85%, but that just kind of widens your field of view out there and stuff. So that's something we're playing with, trying to hone in, make sure we got that running good and smooth. Of course, all your zoom and everything, you see all that there. That's all turned off. And then your menu here is more basically just your information on this little menu itself, the size of it, text. I have show clock in my overlay. You see up there to the top right corner of the overlay box, you see it says overlay position. So what that does is whenever I exit, I see the time, my FPS, and my CPU bound, but that does not come across in game. That sticks with me where I turn. Just allows me to kind of have the ability, one, to see the time, what time it is when I'm in VR. Also see my FPS nice and big in front of my eyes, because I can't always see that little number up there. So that's what we run there. That's how we have our OpenXR settings set up. So now we'll jump out and we'll jump into the in-game settings. So if we open up our options here, graphics. Now there's been a few different things that I've come across with these. I'm going to leave it how I have it here. But there's been some of the videos that I've paid attention to say that if you're running a higher resolution in that like OpenXR, that you want to do a, oh gosh, what's going on there? That you want to do a smaller display here of the 1024 by 768. I've not changed mine down. I've just left it at my 3840 by 2160. So you guys can test that, see if that makes any changes. Once I got things to where they worked, I kind of don't want to really play with them too much. But I do want to, keep messing with it, see what I can get to be the best options for us. But as is, you see there what we've got going on. So we run the AMD FSR Performance with the 2 sharpness. Of course, we have the SPS enabled for VR. I run the Reflex, but I've been messing around with that to see what's better, the boost or not. But it tells you there at the bottom, boost mode keeps the GPU clock frequencies high in CPU bound cases. And you saw there in my little VR thing that I got that little bit of CPU bound. So that's why I run that on boosted, just to see if it helps. I'm not too sure about it, but then like our cloud details and everything, these are, you can change these depending on which track you're at. To me, um, the tracks that have big grandstands and things like that, I always make sure to turn off the grandstands and crowds just to help keep the FPS. Um, but other than that, I mean, these settings have worked pretty well with us. We draw 40 cars in with 12 in a mirror, and then we draw the minimum in pits. We don't really care to see a whole bunch of cars in pits, to be honest. But I do want to see more of the cars on track. So 40 cars, 12 in the mirror. And then we run our dynamic LOD, which I've been coming to find out we run it at 80. So what I've been learning about this, and I could be wrong, is as our FPS drops below 80, then it should start to lower the quality of things in the distance to help keep the FPS at 80 or above. So that's kind of what I'm getting at with learning about this. Again, still learning, not positive, but that's what it seems to me that from what I've been learning. So we keep that up at 80, not to let it drop down to 60 and then start worrying about clarity and all that. Some videos I've watched have kept the frame rate locked at 90 when you're in VR, which probably isn't a bad idea because you're not going to get any higher than 90 out of the VR from what I've been finding out. And again, I could be wrong. That could just be the PSVR that I'm on. So I have it no limit right now, but that's one of those other settings that I'm like want to test out a little bit more over time and see which one works better. Probably not too much of a difference, to be honest, but because we're sitting at 80 as is. So we run the shadows on the map. We run the MSAA with the 4 times and on sharp. I show the nighttime or night shadow maps, but I have ran this from time to time, and when I do, I run it with the in main view. Some tracks it doesn't bother me to run it at all. Other tracks, there's times it pulls the FPS down a little bit too much. So that's another, depending on the track you're at type of thing. I use the PCF4 filter with just the one light, the high detail on the shader quality. And then you guys see here, you hide these card numbers to be able to see yours and others trading paints. If they do the custom number on their trading paints, then you have to have this checked. And what I mean by that, let me pull that up real quick too. We'll kind of make this a two-way tutorial. So if you have trading paints up and you're doing your paint jobs, paint builder. Of course, we use our paint builder through trading paint. But so when you, like, if I were to click and edit this one, when you go to save, it'll ask you, let me change that playing up. Let's go with this Vantage. I've already saved it once. I need to do a new car here. So let's go with uh let's go with this dirt mini stock because we do that race from time to time. So we're just gonna select the base paint. I'm not gonna do anything too drastic with this one yet. So say we want it all black. Pick our setup like this one. I like that. Change your colors around. And green, we'll make that the dark blue. Make the blue our yellow. Okay, so just basic and simple. Now when I hit race up here, it's going to ask us if we want a sim stamped number or a custom number. Now if you do this custom number, then in those game settings, you have to click the hide card numbers. Because if you don't do that and you do a sim stamped number, then you want to make sure that hide card numbers is not checked. Okay. So any guys on the game that run the sim stamped number, you'll be able to see yours and theirs if you do not hide the card numbers. Anybody in the sim that uses custom numbers like we do, if you want to see yours and others that have used custom number paint jobs, you have to have hide car numbers checked. Okay? So just a little bit of side information there. That is something I just learned in the last couple days. Again, I'm new to all this iRacing stuff too, so that's all new to me. So that's why we have that checked, is so that we can see our custom number paint jobs. Then you see the rest of our settings there. I run the one mirror in cockpit, depending on which vehicle I'm running. Sometimes if I jump into super formula cars or any type of formula cars, I'll bump that up to 2, so that way you have both your little side mirrors working. But I tend not to do more than that. But yeah, that's basically it. And then of course the other things that we've been finding out is this screen here will have nothing to do with any of your FPS or your graphics when you're just sitting here like this in view mode. If you're having an issue with FPS being really extremely high when you're just sitting here loading in, go to your replay and change this to max frame rate. And you'll notice if I change it to quality and hit OK, our frames will probably drop a little bit. Didn't do too bad, but it also is depending on the track, of course. So 79 in FPS. You go into your options, replay, and you can see here that's what, like, say if we wanted everything on high detail, everything's maxed there, all this is maxed out. So then, yeah, it dropped us a little bit, but it still levels out. We're 1 FPS lower. But now if you go in there, replay, because we're not really too concerned with that stuff right now, turn that towards the FPS. You'll see we'll kick up and we'll get that 80 mark more often. So not a huge pull on your FPS, but if you're having issues and you're having to me, if you're having issues loading into each race, change those replay settings all the way down for FPS so that everything loads in quicker. And then if you want to go to save a replay or you want to watch a replay or whatever, make a highlight of one of your replays, just go in there, bump all those settings up when you get ready to make a video or when you get ready to watch the replay. Because just as is, just to jump in and race to race, this first screen is the first thing you get, right? So you're going to get a lot of FPS loss and information loading in that's hesitating you from fully loading in, if that makes any sense. So for me, I turn all those settings to straight FPS. If I decide I want to make a video, I'll bump them up. But then once we get in the car, you'll notice our FPS is pretty much fluctuating 79, 80 for the most part. Of course, all our stuff is moved around here right now because we changed the resolution on our screen to make things more viewable. But if I were to change those resolutions back now, back to our recommended, it doesn't, so you'll notice it doesn't change anything with our FPS, but yeah, that's how we get everything looking smooth, running with the PSVR2 on iRacing. So hopefully the settings and things that we've gone through here will help others be able to get their VR locked in. I know it was a headache for quite a few days for me, but you can see now we've got pretty good clarity, and I mean it is the best that I've had it. I am extremely interested to see if others can play around with some of those settings, and be able to get a little bit more out of the RTX 4060 Ti graphics card and stuff. So play with these settings, see if they work for you. I hope it helps. I know it was a headache getting this all set up, but it's definitely been worth it now that I've got everything where I've got it. The races on iRacing are awesome in VR. So again, hope this helps someone out there. And yeah, man. Good luck to y'all. Good luck with the races, and we'll see you out there on track. Yeah, pop subs, all that stuff. Stick around. We'll be making highlights of different races, and we'll be doing long endurance races with some team members and things like that coming up Saturday morning at Nuremberg. We got a 4-hour endurance race as a team, so 3 of us working together to see what we can do. We'll see how well the VR works for that. So we'll see you guys all in our next live stream. And yeah, again, I hope it really do. I really do hope this helps somebody, because I know it was a nightmare trying to get these settings together. It took a week and a half. So, but enjoy, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.